Hi, everybody. Michelle here with Josephine. Hi, Josephine.
Hi.
It's been a while. I have moved. I'm still kind of decorating back here. I got to put some things together, but this is my new home office. I bought a home out near the woods. My backyard faces the woods, which is phenomenal. And I have no neighbor on one side and no neighbor in the back. Um, so it's really peaceful. My dogs are happy because I mentioned in a previous video we were attacked by a dog. So they're safe. I'm safe.
Wonderful.
Which, and we were talking before we started this video that the topic today, we're going to talk about how our lifestyle, we're living our life, and some things that are in our life could affect how our minerals are utilized and lost. So it's like you could be doing the diet and taking supplements, but if there's things going on in your life that's, causing stress, it's kind of, it's not going to totally help you, so I've seen in my life, and Josephine's seen in her life, and we've seen in our clients, that just making major life decisions can drastically change your patterns. So we're going to kind of talk about that today, because I think it's very important when people are looking at their hair test. I have some clients who are like, oh, I'm doing worse. No, the body's just adapting, or it's going through retracing or whatever. We're never really, sometimes doing bad can be good, because we're getting there. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. And
Yeah.
it's true that with the lifestyle, like when for people who are nervous, have a nervous system, it doesn't, they're just hearing some noise outside could just trigger them. I lived in the city pretty much all my life. A few times where it was more peaceful than other times, but it was never really in the country or in a rural area. Never really did that. And so this, as soon as I not moved, but came here where I am at the moment, where there's peace and there's only trees around like you have, my patterns, my 4 lows disappeared. Like I'm telling you, overnight, my sodium potassium ratio hiked. It was always below 2.5 for the whole time. And I was doing the program A1, A1. I mean, I couldn't have been more A1 than that, okay? And still nothing was really shifting. And I think, and because when you're in the city, let's face it, I mean, especially in places where there's a lot of noise and stuff, it's awful for some people. So depending on, like we talked about, like depending on the background that you come from, but if you came from a family that was like, noisy and, like Italians are and stuff, you need a lot of peace, lot of peace. And so I find that that's what Michelle and I are finding, that yes, the diet is good, supplements are good, no question, but that's something that we all have to work on. Finding a place where if you can't move, if you can't move because you live in a place where it may be more chaotic than, let's say, in the country, then you got to find a place where you can find some peace, because meditation is not always going to do it either, because you're going to hear the noise no matter what. You can't, I mean, it's out there. Meditation, when you don't even have to meditate when you live in a place like where there's peace, because it's like you hear yourself breathing.
It's true. I went from living in a condo where I heard doors and cars, and then the dogs were barking constantly when they heard the noises, and I'm screaming, stop barking. It was just crazy. And now I walk around this house and it's like I can hear the silence. Have you ever been where you could just hear? I don't know what it is, but it's just like this fuzzy sound. Like it's almost like you can, I don't know, you can hear the energy of the universe because it's so quiet. Or I go in my backyard and I'll hear cars drive by, but it's nice and peaceful, and I hear the birds, and Yeah, it's a drastic change. Like I don't feel like I'm constantly, the adrenals are reactive constantly from all these stresses. My life went from really stressful probably for a while now to completely peaceful. And it even showed up on my hair test. So my first hair test was done in December. I did my hair sample December of 2016. My adrenal, I'll be very transparent. My adrenal ratio was like 1.9. And my thyroid was not quite, it was slow, but it wasn't very slow. And I was just going through menopause. And then I went into major adrenal insufficiency and very sluggish thyroid for 5 years now, right, Josephine?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
my hair tests look worse than probably all my clients.
Yeah.
Some days I was like, why am I even doing this? Because mine were really bad. And then, anytime I tried to find peace, it just wasn't, working because of various things. I don't want to go into the details, but that, the thing is, and I see this with people, is you can be in situations, whether it's your job, your relationship, or where you live, that you adapt and you kind of think, oh, okay, this, you don't see things as clearly. And this is really causing a lot of problems. This is why some people are seeking out help. They don't realize it, but it's those things that are actually during, we think it's physical because we start to feel the things that are physically happening. But my adrenal ratio, I think the lowest was probably 0.14. So if anybody's gotten a hair test, like 0.14, I mean, that's like, I don't know how I got up and function every single day. And my thyroid ratio has been up to like what, like 200 probably. So that is very, I'm surprised I got out of bed every day, quite
Oh,
honestly.
yeah.
I
Oh,
think it's
yeah.
my attitude that gets
Well, the
me,
calcium shell was
and the
also, right?
calcium shell. I've had a bad calcium shell. And then
That's
I'm
how
gonna,
you got out of bed, because of the calcium shell.
well, because I was completely numb to
That's
how I
it.
was feeling.
Exactly.
And then on top of it, I'm just a very optimistic person, and my spiritual side is very high energy, but my physical being really needed to rest. So I made some life changes the past 6 months, and I went through some stresses too. And now, like, everything is completely shifted. My adrenal ratio was 2.88. I've never even seen it since I've been doing hair tests all these years. It's never gotten remotely close to that. I think maybe once it went up to 1 and then it dipped back down. So, it just goes to show you, because quite frankly, my diet and supplements, like you know, I've been eating healthy for so long that it's second nature. So I don't have to do anything there. I don't have to, force myself to eat healthy or anything. It was literally making changes in my life that that I was able to shift like that. So, I don't want people to feel bad that you're not able to do that, because it's important to realize that we all have a path that we have to go through, and
Yeah.
that we're learning something, and that sometimes the people that might be causing us stress, or I look at them as our spiritual teachers, they're teaching us to love ourselves more, and that, we have some work to do. But when you are ready and you're ready to move on, don't be surprised if there's a huge shift, that you can go from completely feeling one way to another way.
Yeah. It's even sometimes only taking a vacation for some
Mhm.
people. They leave, they take the plane, they go somewhere else, they leave for a month. And we often hear how wonderful they felt when they were on vacation. Well, the switch of the nervous system was off. Their adrenalines probably were working better. They were not as nervous. They were relaxing. Although going traveling can be stressful, but it's not the same kind of stress either. It's a fun stress.
Yeah,
It's a
because you're
stress
looking
where you
forward to it.
that's right. You're enjoying yourself. You're going to restaurants,
Right.
and sitting around socializing, because, we're all a bunch of social butterflies that we like to admit it or not. And we're not living that life anymore because the community is not there as it was when we were us growing up, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
with family, with relatives and stuff, you know. We don't have that. We're pretty much on our own. And so people, there's more and more people who are very lonely as well,
Yeah.
you know. So loneliness creeps up, and it becomes like, it's called the acedia. It's one of the seven deadly sins. Acedia is when the devil comes and bug you in the afternoon or something, and because you have nothing to do, you know. And when you have nothing to do, then all of a sudden you got all kinds of ideas. All of a sudden you can even have pain in your body that you don't even really have, but you feel pain, or you don't feel too good, or whatever. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I found that the minute I didn't spend too much time on working too hard on myself, and I had to concentrate on other things and focus on other things, I started to get better. That was in my early 40s, let's say. Okay. And so this had, I had no choice, because here I had a landlord that wanted to evict my sister and I. So, boom, I didn't have time to think about only me. I had to start thinking, okay, what am I going to do to defend myself? And so with my adrenaline was going a mile a minute. But in that time, I got healthier. Go figure. My body got healthier. My bowels were functioning.
Yeah.
Everything was in A1, because all of a sudden it's like I was starting to take my power back, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So this landlord ended up being a gift of God.
Mm-hmm.
He really was, because he was the worst landlord. It's like these movies you watch, you know. He was really something else.
Yeah, I know one of those.
Yeah, one of those where he put things on our door as claiming that we had to go to a mental place, because he thought we were mental or whatever. Never really bothered the guy or anything, but he was a bit of a, he was not a bit, we found out through investigation. Don't want to get into it too much, but he was a crook, came from the United States, came and lived in Vancouver. He was a tycoon, bought a building which I lived in, and but he ended up using a different name, blah blah blah. And I think that's what he feared the most about me and Gina. And so, but we ended up finding out anyways. So, but he was a gift. He was the biggest gift I've ever had in my entire life. I don't think I would have ever moved my pattern or the way I was living. I was, you know, I was coasting. That's all I was doing, coasting. I went to work. I had a little business, you know. We were content, reading, doing not really anything. He came along, and all of a sudden, and he's the one, he kind of opened up our eyes to all the corruption, because once you go to court and you do it on your own and whatever, you get to find out a lot of things, you know, and you get to see how I thought that the judiciary, judges and stuff, I mean, that because they had education and they weren't, I never thought of them as being corrupt or anything like that. And then all of a sudden I'm seeing a different world completely. I mean, I had to wake up real fast, which was good. And so today, when I think of him, I think, thank you, you know. But it was, the focus was off me. It was no longer as much on me, where I was doing, you know, all that therapy and the 12 steps, and it was dragging me down. So I like going there. So, you know, I talk about that in the book about the 12 steps. Me, I tell people, yeah, you got to start. You go there because you want to stop an addiction, but you got to move on. Always move on, you know, because you can't just stay there, because that too, you could be stuck in something in these 12 steps. Huh? You,
It's having balance. And I think
right.
that, when we're on a path of healing and personal development, there's times where we're immersed in it, but we need to come out and also be human and interact and do the things that are why we're here to be human and have experiences. So we don't want to be too consumed or too, like some people don't want to do anything. So they're consumed with constantly keeping themselves busy or addiction so they don't have to face things.
Right.
And then there's people that are facing too much. It's like, oh my gosh, just get out and go have some fun. So,
Yeah.
there's
And that's
balance.
pretty much the people that are on this program, by the way, because it's like the focus sometimes is too much. It's like with the food, the procedures, the supplements, and all of that. And then there's no time for anything, okay, in between. And we have to learn to have fun. We have to learn to enjoy ourselves. Although it's not always the easiest thing to do when you're alone by yourself and you got nobody. I have some clients also. I think of, so when I'm saying this, I'm thinking of some clients. And I remember uh, when I was, let's say, living in an apartment, I would look, I was like a cat sometimes, I would look outside. I didn't feel like going out, I had the park right there with all the trees right on the seawall. And I would just look and I was kind of numb, numb of, but the minute I did it, the minute I'd go out, I felt, oh my God, the freedom, it felt free. But so I think there's no easy answer to anything, but making a lifestyle change like Michelle right now just did, that's huge. And that would be for anybody. Doesn't mean that her patterns are not going to come back if she goes back into maybe not right away, depending. If she doesn't get stuck in a rut, it won't come back. It's being in a rut that really is the problem. It's making, we look at our hair and we think our hair mineral analysis and we say, oh my God, everything, nothing changed now. But we're in a rut most of the time.
Yeah.
So we can't blame the program always for that because of the food, because quite honestly, everything we eat, vegetables, the red meat, the animal protein, it's all very good. We hardly have any processed food in that diet, quite honestly, right? So when people say, well, it's got to be the diet, it's hard to pinpoint the diet on this. Why? Because you're not having a fruit, you think? Is that what you think? It's because you're not having that peach or that watermelon? Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
Have your fruit. One, if you think that that's gonna make a big, huge difference in your patterns the next time you have your hair mineral analysis. I think it's important that we look within in the sense of, okay, what is it that is not right here with my life? There's something. Doesn't mean we can make the change right away, because things like money can block us. If you don't have the money to move, that's a huge one. Okay, and if you live in a neighborhood where you don't need a car, and you can go and on the train, or you can go on the bus wherever, like I did before, it was wonderful. So these are things that may keep you in a place where in the city. So there's got to be another way without having to move for some people, where all they have to do is change their lifestyle, in the sense, what's his name talks about that. What's his name?
Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
it's also, I really believe that when you are fully ready for something, and I'll share something, okay? I don't share this often, but I think it really it shows you that the universe, God, whatever, is just waiting for you to be completely ready. Once you're completely ready and you take a foot forward, the doors completely open. So years ago, in my late 30s, early 40s, I was in a relationship, a serious relationship with somebody who drank too much. And the sight of him when he drank was just really not great, and it progressed. So I was getting to a point where I needed to be ready to leave the relationship. I'm really grateful for his mother, because she came to visit and he was mean to her on Thanksgiving dinner. And I was consoling her in the kitchen. She was crying, and she said, Michelle, she said, I think you're a wonderful person. I love my son, and you're into health and wellness, but your relationship is unhealthy. And it was like a gentle slap in the face.
No
You
kidding.
know,
Yeah.
she was right.
That,
Like,
yeah.
instead of being defensive about it, I thought about it. I'm like, she's right. My life is contradictory. I'm with somebody who's drinking too much, and I have this clean lifestyle, and it's not working out. This is unhealthy. So it was like I made a shift inside of me that I was ready, but financially I wasn't. Like, he always had us going out and doing things. So if I was always spending money and I didn't have money saved, it kept me in the relationship. And
Right.
he probably
Right.
knew that. Well, one night he said he wanted to go out when we were out. And I said, let's go to the casino. And I don't like to gamble. We were in Vegas, but something propelled, and I don't recommend people doing this, but I'm just, but I knew he wanted to go somewhere. So we went, and long story short, I won like almost $12,000, and I don't gamble. Like, I cried at the table. Like, I hit some kind of jackpot thing. Like, I barely used any money. And I knew that that was God's way of saying, you need to leave this relationship. I'm giving you this money. You need to leave. And I left. So I really believe that when you're ready for something, like truly, truly ready, there are no blocks.
Right.
There's nothing there. The blocks that are there are our own internal blocks. For people who, like, if you're not making money, that's your internal block that you're not worthy of making enough money, or that you don't have the money. Once you get past those blocks, anything is possible.
Yeah.
I think it's always temporary.
Yes, that's right. And sometimes being in a temporary state like that, most of the time, it's really a time to reflect as well. Because if you're not able to go forward because you got these blocks, it's not as bad as it appears. Because look, now we're able to look back, right? We look back at the blocks that we had. Well, those blocks serve the purpose. It serves a purpose because we can now talk about it, because we were stuck. It doesn't mean that I'm not gonna get stuck in and there's certain things that I'm still stuck with, but I'm not taking, it's not becoming a major issue as it was when I was, let's say, in my 30s or 40s or 50s. Maybe, it's better, much better. But, it's like we are often in places like that, that by God's grace, we get out of it. And when we get out of it, this is where we're able to let people know, those who are near us, in order for them to move on. Or also we also have compassion for other people, because we've been there.
Yeah.
We know what it's like. We know what
Mhm.
it's like to be stuck in a place. And sometimes we don't know that we're really stuck. Although I knew I was stuck, it's like, I mean,
Me too.
but
Like,
yeah,
and you are not doing anything about it. And then
yeah,
afterwards, after all that, I went through some major, major life transformation, because when you go from this constant, he had a couple animals and then him, and it was a long-term relationship. And then I went into like complete quietness, and I had to listen to myself and my thoughts. And that's where I was able to do a lot of like deep spiritual growth, during that time period after the relationship. I'm very grateful for all my relationships and experiences, because afterwards I'm able to reflect and see the parts that I need to work on. I don't, sometimes there might be a little bit that might be someone who is swaying the relationship to be worse, but it really takes two to tangle. So you can't really blame the person you were with, because you were with them. So,
that's right.
we
That's
play
right.
our role. And so when we can look back and say, okay, well, what was it about me that attracted this person? What is it from my childhood that is still unhealed? What is it that I need to work on, so that we can improve? That's why these people come into our lives, because they're there to teach us lessons. And they can be in a form of a coworker, a friendship, a neighbor. And if you notice the same people appearing in your life, but a different name, but the same personality, that's because there's something there that you still need to work on. and that dynamic of the relationship, which usually has to do with a parental figure, in our
Yeah.
childhood.
Oh yeah, the one that traumatize you, but you're not even aware of it sometimes, right? It's like hiring for myself here some workers every time I need something, whatever it is, if it's got to be redoing a bathroom or whatever, right? And I got to uh, speak with all different types of contractors that come over, and they're all men, of course. And it's not easy. They even have here in this province they had a webinar for women who hire contractors because apparently the contractors here take advantage of women by themselves. So that means they have higher prices for them. They give you, they're all very slick, basically. Okay,
Do
maybe
that here, like if
seriously.
you got to get your
I
car fixed or
oh
whatever. Yeah.
all right, so that's a relationship too, because
Yep.
you haven't gotten into the contract yet, but it's like meeting the first guy, the first person you're gonna meet when it's like a blind date, let's say. Okay. So here you meet this person, you show them around, and then you gotta make the decision. And you don't always make the decision right away until they give you the submission, right? And then from there, you got a few other people that come over, and then you got about 3 or 4 that you okay. So which one are you gonna take, right? So at the beginning, which I didn't have any experience at this, okay, because I was institutionalized, because I lived in an apartment all my life, not the same, but mostly I was a renter, okay? And as a renter, we were institutionalized as renters because every time there's a problem, you call your landlord. You know what I mean? Okay, I got something broken, and boom, they come. And all you have to do is pay your rent, okay? And you go and enjoy yourself or whatever. It's a big difference when you're in a home or you own a condominium. So it's a big learning curve. So at the beginning, it was like I wasn't as prudent as I should. So this is a virtue that I got to work on, being prudent, which is not easy because I'm a type A. I have the type A personality. It's like, okay, well, and but it's not been easy. And now again, where I'm faced with the same kind of dilemma, and it's the same kind of thing. And I'm thinking, okay, now I got to take it easy. I got to check for this. Okay, I got to be prudent because if I don't, you see, it's the same kind of thing when we go with a guy when we go into a relationship. And then because we weren't prudent. I can't say when I got married at 22 years old that I was prudent, not at all. Because I had all the clues, I had everything in front of me. But of course, at that age, you think you're going to change the person, right? So it's a bit the same thing with the working thing, with the people you hire. Same thing. You think, well, he may not be too bad, maybe it's not, okay, and he's got a little bit of this, but it's not easy. So it's being very, very prudent in picking these people. So sometimes it's stressful, but that's another way for us to grow. It's a way for us to grow up and become adults. Basically, that's what it is. It never ends, really. Until we die, quite
You
honestly.
know, well, that we're constantly learning to speak our truth.
Yeah.
How can I do it lovingly but have boundary,
Yeah.
and like we don't know until we've been in these dynamics that we're like, what the heck, why do I keep getting in these dynamics? And it's because there's something that we still need to learn. So I don't know, it's really interesting. I think as long as, we're for me, I need to take responsibility because I can't heal if I don't take responsibility for my part. You can't see things if you don't take responsibility. So if we're a victim and we're constantly blaming, you can't change or grow from that. You
No.
can't keep blaming your parents. Yeah, they were messed up. It was a very dysfunctional environment. But now I'm an adult. It's my responsibility to learn to work past these things so that I'm not picking the same type of relationships that are mimicking my childhood.
Yeah, right. And God gave us a will for that reason. So yes, as kids it's different, but as soon as we become adults, then we have the choice of going left or right, you
We
know?
have discernment, but we ignore the red flags. I
Yes.
was reading a meme on Instagram, and I like to read the comment section. And this woman said, whatever your first fight was in a bad relationship, sometimes is your last fight. So if you'd ignored the red flags of the first, conflict, then that might be what ends your relationship later, because it was there. We saw them, but we ignored them.
Oh,
And
totally.
then, years later, but, again, we learn and grow. So I
Yes.
don't believe in having any, re-experience I've had, bad or good. Like Josephine was saying, like if it wasn't for the dog, one of my dogs being attacked, it propelled me into making, these choices to where I am now. So, I like to look at what good comes out of things. And I
Yes.
really believe no matter how horrific something is, there's always something, a shift. Maybe you experience something very tragic, you lose a loved one, but it shifts you to help people or whatever. You'd like, there's always something that we can learn and grow from.
The same as with the state of the world the way it is now, there's good that's going to come out of it. As bad as it
Right.
is and as bad as
Yeah.
it's going to get, there's going to be good that's going to come out of it.
Yeah.
There's always
Well,
good
because
that
we
comes
were
out of it.
one way for so long. So,
Yeah.
another thing I wanted to have, a talk on was, a long time ago, we had men that were very masculine. And then the women, they became, wives and mothers and they stayed home. We had this traditional thing. And then what happened was women were traumatized too much because these men were quite frankly horrible. So women got stuck in these relationships because they didn't work, they had kids, they couldn't get out. So the generations that saw their mothers miserable, decided, hey, I'm going to take care of myself because I don't want to be trapped like that. That's what happened to me. So I want to be able to walk away from a relationship and financially take care of myself. So now we have these super independent women that are not attracting masculine men because they're too masculine and independent, and men like to be needed and be providers. Unfortunately, though, men need to grow right now. They need to work on we all have to go. So men are over here and women are over here. And the men need to work on their traumas, learn to express themselves better, which they should lead and work on that
Yes.
movement. And then what will happen is women will start to soften and we can meet in the middle. But right now, it's very drastic, and men are being called to heal right now, and women can't heal them. Men need to do it on their own, and they need to seek out other men to do it. We
Yes.
can't lead that. So if you're
No.
in a relationship where you feel like you need to lead, it's just not good. And I realized that, recently is that I was too much in my masculine. So I was attracting all these men that are too much in their feminine. So
Right.
then
Right.
what happens is I feel like I'm leading the relationship and it's extremely exhausting to be leading at work and then a woman leading and making decisions in her personal life. And that's why women are stressed out and they need massages and they're cranky and stuff like that because they're not meant to lead.
No,
We're
at
not
all.
meant.
No.
Women have a harder time going through menopause and children and this and
Right.
that. Men are stronger and they can handle that much better and they're more equipped to have a structured environment, whereas women are supposed to flow. So we've got this big shift, and that's why a lot of relationships are ending and men are just too feminine. Like we need a big change.
Yeah, we need a big change. I think
Yeah.
it's for women, it's men have to stop dating women for a while because they need to
Yes.
grow
They
up,
need to work on
basically.
themselves.
They really
They
need to work
Yeah.
on themselves. They need to grow up. They need to learn
Mhm.
how to lead because they
Mhm.
really have no they have no one to look up to, that can show them. They didn't have their father that showed them. They don't have no one to show them how to really lead. That's why, like you said, going with the men's group, there are a lot with the Catholic in the tradition I'm talking about, and I'm talking tradition because anything in the Catholic that is in the Novos Ordos, it's very feminine there too, because that church or that religion has become has been taken over, really. But anything prior to that, a lot of the men are meeting and becoming men amongst each other because they need it, the young kids especially, because you can't really function without if you have a woman leading you, there's no way. Of course there will be fights, there's no question there'll be fights, because and we cannot submit to a man either who's doesn't know which way he's going.
Yeah.
Very hard to submit to a man who first doesn't submit to God himself, first of everything. He's got actually no direction. He's going left, right, center.
Flip-floppy, can't
No,
make decisions, or if he
forget it.
has an addiction, like
Yeah,
all of those things, a woman's going to feel super insecure. And
yeah,
so when a woman doesn't feel like she's being led properly, she's going to be hyper vigilant to take care of herself. And then when she starts acting and, becoming like boisterous and fighting back, then a man feels like he's in a relationship with a man and there's no polarity, but he's not doing anything to lead properly. So it's,
that's That's right. It's like when we watch a couple dance, a man and a woman dance. It's always, usually, most of the time, the man that leads the dance, and that's how women want to be led. They want to be led exactly in the same way as somebody who's dancing the tango.
yeah.
I mean, and the and everything is working fine. It doesn't mean there's no fights in those relationships, or there's no disagreement. Maybe no fights, but there's no disagreement. But at the end of the day, if the woman trusts her man enough, she will allow him to lead and make him and have the decisions, because sometimes it's not to put women down, but we're not always logical. And that's a fact
Yeah.
about us.
Yep.
Okay. It's like seeing all these women judges on the bench. I'm thinking, if they're going through not their menopause, but their menses every month. And I mean, I remember when I went through my menses, I mean, there was times I had to lock myself up because I mean, I couldn't think,
Yeah.
So I don't know how you can
No, I
function.
agree. Women,
Honestly.
I'm glad I don't have to be in a relationship with a woman, because women can be super like emotional and all over
Yeah.
the place. And that's why it's important for a man to be grounded in who he is,
Yes.
and to also respect that that's a feminine, instead of trying to make her not be like that. But he can approach, I don't know. I think there's a way for a man to lead, for women to soften. Like, if
Absolutely.
if if I know that I'm being led properly and that he's taking care of his emotional well-being and he knows where he's going, and I'm not being pulled down, like financially, alcohol, drugs, whatever, gambling, things like that, then I have no problem submitting to that. I want nothing more than some man who's like, hey, I know you're busy all week. You got to feed the dogs, so why don't we go out 6:30? I want you to dress nice because we're going to go to a nice, like, tell me what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Elsa's
Yes.
like all perked
Yes.
up and ready to go. I'm like, man, I didn't have to make any decisions. All you had to do is tell me to get dressed up and be ready at 6:20, and I will be dressed up and ready at 6:20, but if you're like, hey, or not making any, I'm like, oh my God,
Please.
and
Please.
so that's
Yes.
what's happening with these women that are strong and independent, is they got these wishy-washy, flippy floppy, go with the flow, ungrounded men that they're not excited about submitting to. So we rather just hang out with our pets and work.
That's right. And if, let's say, for a man, if he really is the kind of guy that wants to lead a woman, all he has to do, I read that a long time ago, where if you only go on a date on, let's say, a lunch, and you have glasses on, and the guy, you just got to ask your first time date, can you please remove your glasses? And she resists, and she's not going to remove her glasses because she wants to know why, and she's going to ask you all kinds of questions, right off the bat, to take an exit, because you know that she's not going to be the type who's going to submit to anything, because it's only glasses. She's
Right.
not asking you to take out your underwear. It's just your glasses, to see if the woman, you got to test. As we have to test them, men have
Women
to test
test
us.
men. Yeah, women test men. I mean,
Yes,
I can reflect back because, I've done a lot of coaching sessions or coaching courses about this whole masculine feminine, which really helped me see, what I was doing wrong on my side and why I was attracting certain people. But, to be able to see that like women also are testing men. And if a man doesn't know that and he's just reacting right away, if he's emotional reacting, I don't feel safe. You're
that's
not
it.
going to lead me properly. You can't
Right.
even control your emotions. You're like a friggin' woman,
Yeah.
so a woman will right away not trust that man. So yeah, men have a lot of work to do. And I think it's great because we are moving, we have to go through these hard times to get to good times. So
Yes. Yes.
if we can view it that way, instead of the world is falling apart, it has to fall apart to build back up.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen is that we're going to see less people physically ill, less mental illness, because there's lots of mental illness now. It's not got it doesn't only have to do with all the toxic metals out there. We just got to look at all the single people out there, broken families. I mean, that puts a dent in a lot of in the way we feel physically, emotionally. So I think that if we can get together, men and women get together, where the man can start learning to lead, unfortunately, they can't even lead a country right now, because we see it everywhere around the world. It's
Yeah.
really bad. Okay. It's like, that's why we're going down really fast, right? It's so, but I think that when that's going to happen, I think that's going to make a big difference, because if we only think 150 years, maybe people didn't live that long, but they weren't as sick as we all are now. We're sick physically. We're burned out. We're like, it's not the same kind of being, getting a disease or whatever. And there's more people with cancer today than ever before. And so I think being in a family, in a good relationship, that really, really helps us all around, right? So,
Yep.
anyways,
Yep.
let's
Yeah.
hope for us and for the whole world, that the whole this man and woman situation and traumatic events that we've all gone through, and that now we're kind of witnessing from how the world has turned, that we go back to tradition in a way where men have a better understanding this time of their woman. Only the educated ones knew then. I think today there's more education. Well, I don't know if education makes a big deal. It's hard to say, right, Michelle? I mean,
I think
we'll
it
see.
like I think it goes back to if men are leading and women feel safe in their leadership, we can go back to traditional roles, but women don't feel safe. So their safety is to go out and go to school and to get a career and to be able to afford to take care of themselves. That's where they're feeling safe. That's, I would joke around and say I became my own husband, father, and brother,
Yes, that's
because
very
I didn't
sad, huh?
have any healthy males in my life.
That's
So
it.
I had to become a healthy male in my life. Like I'm going to attempt to put that thing together by myself,
No,
you
but
know?
women get criticized a lot for that, right? We get criticized a lot because we men criticize that we don't allow them to lead. It's not that we don't allow them to lead. It's the fact that we overcompensate because they're not leading. It's not that we want to lead. There's not a woman on this face of the earth that really wanted to lead. really, quite honestly.
It's true.
Okay. We really, I mean, we see it on the dance floor. The woman is having the time of her life, having her partner lead the dance. So it's the same thing in life, you know? So it's like, so we get a lot of criticism for overcompensating, but they don't want to have anything to do with leading either. So,
Yeah.
anyways, so here we are.
Yeah, so to summarize, you know, sometimes we're physically not doing well because internally or our environment is causing the problem. So no matter how much you eat and take supplements, there may not be a shift until you make an internal or exterior shift that is not related to diet and supplements. My other comment is sometimes people detox and focus too much on themselves. Maybe in the beginning you might need to, some people are really ill and you need to be secluded and focus, but start to move out of it too, because again, it's the whole swinging too much on one side causes an imbalance. So we have to start moving, towards the middle. And then the other thing is that we all have healing to do. And that's what's happening right now is we all need healing. Men have been stifled. They haven't been able to express themselves emotionally. So now what's happening is they're too emotional or outburst or whatever. And they're not leading. And we've got this, we need them to lead. If there's a man listening, we need you and we want you to lead, but we want you to deal with your traumas and to work through those. We're here for you. We support you. We want you to do that, but we can't make you do that. You need to go do it yourself because women cannot lead. Men need to lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Find
think
a man that's doing
yeah,
the work. They don't need to be perfect as long as they're a few steps ahead of you. There's a lot of them on social media. I follow them. Jake Woodard is amazing. He's just he has a bunch of courses, but he speaks about masculine, feminine energy, and he's talking to the men, and he's talking to the women, and he's talking to the couples. I highly recommend him and his courses.
yeah, that would be the first step for them, definitely. It's a step. It's something also that has to be coming from within, so it's something that they have to find a willingness to do. They also have to find out whether they really like women or whether they hate women because they hate their mothers. So, I mean, you see, it goes deep. It goes very, very deep because
It's
a
very
lot of
deep.
men, it's deep because some of them feel they've been crushed and like a cigarette. And so there's a lot of work to be done, but that doesn't mean that the work cannot be done. It's
Yeah.
possible for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah.
All right. So we're winding down, and
Yeah.
it was nice seeing you. And I'm really, really happy for you, Michelle, that you have that place where you
Thank
can
you.
relax, and it's your little compound now.
I know. I love it. It's
Yeah.
great. Yeah. So we'll do another video in a few weeks. I'm going to be traveling out of town for work / pleasure. So we just wanted to get together and have a little chat here. Probably ran a little long, but I think it was a really great talk. I
Yeah.
appreciate Josephine.
Yeah, and if
And
there's any comments, and don't forget to subscribe, and if you like it, to put the thumbs up.
share it.
And yeah, and we're looking forward in doing this again for sure.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.